We're now going to hear about the accessory dwelling local law.
Yeah, sounds good. Good evening. If you recall, back in April of this year, the Accessible Viable Living Committee, the AVL Housing Committee, appeared before the town board at a work session. They presented the backbone of what they believed would be a strong accessory dwelling unit, local law. And just to recap, accessory dwelling unit is a form of housing that is complementary to a primary residence on a site, and it's typically much smaller in size. My experience, at least in my hometown, has been that these are customarily implemented in extra space if one has in a garage. So 400 or 500 square foot garage can be converted to a small one-bedroom apartment, and it's deemed a very viable, broadening the spectrum of housing that a community provides, and it's oftentimes, fairly inexpensive in the scheme of things. So that's just a quick overview on accessory dwelling units. But just to get back to the process and how we got here, since the time that the AVL met with the town board, they've been meeting monthly, and I've assisted the AVL and looked at other model legislation that a lot of Westchester communities have implemented with respect to this type of legislation, and worked with the committee to prepare the draft, which is before you now. So it's a fairly comprehensive local law that would regulate ADUs in the town of Greenburgh. The AVL committee definitely endorsed this local law, and they feel it's a good direction for the town to head towards. And some of the overarching concepts of the way this local law is structured is that accessory dwelling units would be available as a second unit in single-family residential districts in the town. The local law would require a special permit to be approved to facilitate approval of an accessory dwelling unit. The local law covers the basics, number of units. Obviously, one ADU per site would be the max allowed. There's size requirements, a minimum of 400 square feet, a maximum of 800 square feet. There's provisions about conformance with underlying zoning provisions to adhere and respect existing setbacks, impervious coverage, that sort of thing. There's quite a bit of narrative in the local law about aesthetic considerations, rental duration, off-street parking requirements, things that you would customarily expect. Owner occupancy required is another key component of the local law. In terms of density, in the memo of the AVL to the town board, the committee actually recommends that the town board cap the number of applications that are potentially applied for in an annual period, and they recommend starting off with a cap of 25 applications. And within the local law, it actually has a provision, if you support it, which would authorize the town board by resolution to modify that either up or down as you deem appropriate. I guess the only other things I think that I could mention, and this might be anecdotal, but from looking at other local laws and speaking with peers in the planning industry, when a community passes an ADU local law in Westchester, I get the sense that there's not a major rush of applications. The numbers I'm seeing in speaking to some of the Rivertown villages, some of them have said we get like 3 per year or something like that. Some of the communities that have had the ADU law on the books for several years now. And that was an unknown. I didn't know if the experience would have been that, you get 40 applications per year or whatnot. That may not be the case for all, but in general, I think the general takeaway is that there's not this sort of mad rush or dash and
not going to
influx
solve the housing, affordable housing.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of people, it's not conducive to what they want.
Can I ask you a question? One of the thoughts that I had was when people basically make improvements on their home. Obviously, the taxes are going to go up. The property taxes are going to go up. I'm wondering if we should ask the state legislature to pass a law that would authorize freezing of any tax increases if somebody creates a accessory dwelling unit and basically makes it affordable. Because I'm saying, why would somebody do improvements on their home if basically their property taxes?
Well,
their
because
assessments
they
are-
will, they may get some income out of it. It'll make it more livable, and it won't be, so costly because they're small
No, but
units.
I just sort of feel that, when I've spoken to the other mayors that have new accessory dwelling laws, there's very little, none of them are really very successful because, people are just not participating. So it's something that sounds good, that we're doing something for affordable housing, but we're really not, accomplishing as much as we hope for. And I'm thinking that if the state would make it easier, if we would be providing more incentives for, there's a lot of widowers who might want to do this, if it really is financially beneficial, they could do some repairs on their home, they could convert their homes to allow accessory units. It's not, if there's going to be no tax, if their homes are not going to be assessed, if they keep it affordable for a certain number of years, and maybe if I think the state was providing some financial incentives,
Well, I'm just curious, since you spoke to other supervisors and mayors about it, did they sign on to that concept of a tax abatement, as it were?
When I spoke to them, everybody, and I said, oh, we're looking at doing it, everybody's laughing because they basically are saying, it really hasn't been, they made a big thing when they pass it, and then some communities, nobody applies.
But did you talk to them about
All right, so they thought it was a
the
good
state tax? They thought it was a good idea,
Yeah,
too.
people thought it was a good idea, but, I was really talking to them about my interest in, that I was excited about the presentation we had a couple months ago with the planning, board and yourself. I'm trying to think of ways of making the law, much more effective. The other thing is, if we anticipate very few people are going to be participating, do we really need to have like a limitation? We could, because if it turns out that we might want to have a 2-year sunset provision on the law, and then we could always say, at the end of 2 years, we'll revisit and see what the experiences are, rather than a cap.
So in your scenario where they don't have to pay increase in taxes for a second dwelling unit,
I'm saying
That
the
second-
assessment wouldn't be increased.
that second dwelling unit could have a family in there, they could be using our local schools. Who picks up that cost?
I'm saying the goal, to me, the goal is,
That's not my question, is somebody
no.
picks up that cost.
yeah, but I'm talking about when we build affordable housing, people are picking up the cost also because affordable housing doesn't generate same revenue as market rate housing. So the goal of this, my understanding a couple months ago, was we have an affordable housing shortage in Westchester, so
But
obviously.
generally, don't we arrange for some kind of, we arrange for a tax abatement, but sometimes there are pilots or some other work involved in
Yeah.
making sure, so,
I think at a minimum, look, if this local law process goes forward, it will not be a quick process. We're going to get a lot of input from planning board, from the county. We're going to, and there will be public hearings. There's a referral. We're looking at, I would say, minimum 5 to 6 month process. I think it's definitely important to just get a sense from the assessor what would be the tax ramifications if one were to do this. So we'll at least at a baseline get you factual information there so you have it. And
I'm just saying.
it's understood that the cost will likely be passed on to the renter if there's increased taxes, and in the spirit of affordability, definitely hear you. But, there's a balancing side of things, like you say,
Yeah, I just think this is like a great initiative. And, I've always, I feel that if you really, first of all, there's a lot of widowers, people on fixed income, senior citizens. This could really help them stay in the community, which is great. And also, we have an affordable housing shortage, so if we could create more affordable units around the town, that is like a win-win. But if you look at the success and failure rates, the fact is, the accessory dwelling concept hasn't worked as successfully as, people had hoped around the county. So I'm thinking, what could we do to make this even more successful than it would be? I would I'd be happy to vote for this as is, because, the thing is, I know that it's better than what we have. On the other hand,
But it also doesn't apply where you live, Paul, right? It won't
doesn't-
apply. It doesn't apply where you live. So it's like affordable housing in general. You're all for it, putting it over on Manhattan Avenue, but it doesn't apply where you live. My main concern here is owner occupancy. I think it's only for 5 years or so.
No.
Did they increase that?
Yeah. The
What I don't want is people coming in, putting up 2 dwellings in a single-family zone, and then they leave, and then it's just income generator, and they couldn't care less what happens.
yeah,
in
so
their-
this is in perpetuity for the duration of the ADU. 5-year was a condition tied to a board that had a different process.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's changed. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we could also-
That's in there.
we could
Right.
also,
But if I could just, Paul, so how does the other part of this is, we have a comprehensive plan that says there's not going to be an increase in density. We use that on the Elmwood property very successfully to say the comprehensive plan doesn't allow increase in density. I don't consider it to be an increase in density if it's using inside the house, modifying it so they can have an ADU there or a garage that exists. But this also has the capability of putting up a building in the backyards of single-family homes, which could have ramifications for the neighbors on each side who's not used to seeing another building on a lot. To me, that is an increase in density, and I don't know how we get around that. I've been trying to think, how is it that that's in concert with the comprehensive plan? I'm talking about the separate build a new building.
Right.
In somebody's backyard, and it certainly is not going to make it look like a single-family zone once you do that.
Yeah, listen, very cognizant of the comp plan. There is a minimum density requirement in that instance, and maybe that needs to come out, and it's only allowed to be within the primary house or in a garage. But I
Or
think
as a starting point to see how that
Or
works.
as a starting point,
And
right,
then,
right.
if that's, finds that, okay, there's a demand for having a new building put up, I think that's where we're going to get the most backlash. And if you want to try to make this thing actually work, the less you have people coming out and saying, I don't want to build another building, in my neighbor's backyard.
Yeah.
And if it is, maybe it has to be within the building envelope, so that you don't put it, as close as you can to your neighbor's property, because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, so.
But
listen,
I am very, very happy that the provision of owner occupancy, even though if they put up a building and then they change ownership, I can't see them taking down the building, right? So,
There's annual certification, it's kind of buyer beware.
right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I have
Listen,
some issues with that
All
as
the comments are
well.
appreciated. I do feel that this is
But,
a pretty protective
just
local
one.
law.
The group that's doing this did an unbelievable amount of work, and I don't want to, and, we're picking out pieces here, but, they put their hearts and souls into
Yeah,
this thing, and the fact that we're talking about, individual items, does not take away from the hard work that they put into
let me
this.
ask you a question. Is this going to be,
Absolutely,
if
absolutely.
somebody creates an ADU, could we put in a provision that it would have to be affordable? Is that something that's in there?
So, well, in its simplest form, you can do anything you want, right? This is,
Right.
you're the legislative body, so you have that authority. The general premise behind the ADU is that at market rate, it's affordable. Is someone really going to command and say, $3,000 for a 500 square foot one bedroom? No, that would be well in excess of market rate. So hopefully that unit comes in, 1,600, which, would be deemed affordable. But to have an actual requirement tied to area median income is something that I think we can explore on your behalf. It's not a part of the law right now.
Well, maybe, maybe as a follow-up to, the suggestions I had, maybe there could be incentives to families that would want to participate in this if they would commit to making it affordable. Because to me, the reason why I basically would be supportive of ADUs was as a follow-up to the affordable housing crisis. And if it's market rates, that doesn't, to me, then I'm more in line with your thoughts about, the character of the community and not changing our comprehensive, plan and, zoning. On the other hand, if we're getting something out of it, which is more affordable housing, then I feel that, you weigh the pluses and minuses, and creating more affordable housing is a plus that makes this, to me, more worthwhile.
All right, and if it was for seniors, for people on low income, there's nothing in here about that. My guess is much of this will be used to have a low-cost way of getting their kids into a good school district, and we have good school districts in Greenberg. There's no way to stop that, and yet you want to give a tax break for that type of a person, for that purpose. I think this kind of stuff still has to be flushed out.
Okay.
Yeah, there
So
might be other ways to incentivize, maybe a break on permitting for, not total, but a discounted permit in order to make it more affordable, something like that, one-shot deal.
And then we have to define what affordable means.
Correct.
Which we're working on.
Correct.
So I want to echo the applauds to the committee. They really, truly did work hard. I also do want to give a quick shout out to Building Department and Legal. Liz and Amanda have supported the board and myself in crafting this local law. So I do personally, as planning commissioner, believe we have a good launching point, if you will. And what we have before the board for the 20th is a resolution that would declare lead agency intent and then refer the law to the planning board. So those are the sort of the action items.
Garrett, you mentioned a memo. We don't have a memo here. Did you send that to us electronically? I haven't had
Oh,
a
I
chance
did,
to look.
and I noticed when I sent Joan an email, I didn't attach the memo. So it's a one-pager. I will run upstairs and get you all a copy, and I'll get that out in the emails so you have it refreshed.
Please. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that this is not an attempt to solve the affordable housing crisis in the town. It's merely an option given to people to aid that affordable housing crisis. And the affordable housing crisis does not only affect people looking for homes in the town, it also affects people who already own homes in the town. And this is a way to make people who already, to increase the affordability of homes that are already owned by people who find themselves in a situation where they cannot afford them. So the older person who wants to age in place can have an ADU, get someone in there paying them some rent that helps them pay their mortgage, and suddenly they can afford their home again. So when we talk about affordability, we really want to consider all aspects of affordability, not just the person looking for a place, but people who are trying to hold on to their places as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, ADUs is an updated term. They used to be called mother-in-law apartments, so that they were residences for a senior who might actually move into an apartment and have their family live in the main unit, which again goes to Francis's point about schools. And it is a way to help, since so many, there's a huge percentage of homeowners who are underwater, who own their own homes but can't afford to maintain them, so that they're falling apart. And much of the housing stock was built in the 50s, 60s. So this is a way to upgrade a home to be able to afford for seniors to stay in place. So it's a great concept. A mother-daughter, yeah.
Leave the mother-in-law out of it.
Mother-in-law, right.
It turns out to be the same thing.
So thank you to the AVL committee for working so hard on this and coming up with a great plan that, we'll tweak a little bit, but I think it's great in concept. And thank you,
He
Garrett.
figures it's going to take
Excellent.
until about 5 months.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking excited. I'm waiting to hear. So Garrett, when we come back, I know we're talking about that. At what point will we get the definition of affordability? Because that's going to, I think, I'm not sure who mentioned that. That's going to be part of that as well.
Right.
Yeah, I did share an outline with the AVL on redefining affordability in the town of Greenberg. And just for a sneak peek, one of the concepts that we're really fleshing out is overhauling our definitions. Right now, we have what's called affordable and workforce housing, of course, and they're almost very similar, both capped at 80% area median income. What we might be bringing to the table and what we've sort of presented to the AVL is redefining to have a broader range of affordability, hitting an 80% AMI cap, 65% AMI cap, and a 50% AMI cap. But instead of using terms like low income, mod income, workforce, affordable, the fact of the matter is if you are a family and you make 50% of the AMI in Westchester County, you are working, right? You are employed, so you are part of the workforce. So what we're looking to do is remove any negative connotation and assign sort of 3 tiers: workforce tier 1, workforce tier 2, workforce tier 3, and have them defined with those caps. So they are defined numerically, but they're really just all categories of families that work here in the town of Greenberg and Westchester County. So we will be bringing that to the table in a local law format, I would say early first quarter next year.
What would be the lowest number for AMI?
50%. And at 117, you're actually talking family of 4, close to 70,000.
That's lower than even our affordable housing with Mark Soja.
Some of those units do hit at that tier. I think generally they try and achieve roughly a 65% kind of blended average.
Right.
So they may go up to 80, sometimes 85, but then, to balance that out,
Average
you do
has to
have
be 60.
Yeah, to balance it out, you do hit under 50 oftentimes, and there's that need. So that's sort of the philosophy and the direction we're looking to head.